We've built today to cover topics that will help you to move faster, operate leaner, and deliver a customer experience that actually feels human.
Yeah, so before we dive into this incredible lineup of integration stories and solution showcases from our partners, we want to zoom out just a bit and reflect on the bigger picture, the funding, policy, and momentum that's driving the broadband industry forward. To do that, we're excited you're all with us today, and we really want to explore how partnerships, platforms, and purpose-driven innovation are powering the future of broadband. But before we dive too deep into the technology side, we want to start with a kind of grounding ourselves. Um, and we want to do that from the policy, the funding, the infrastructure that's shifting and creating unprecedented momentum for fiber broadband. To help us frame the bigger picture, I'm honored to welcome a national leader who's been at the forefront of the fiber movement for decades, Gary Bolton, President and CEO of Fiber Broadband Association. If you know fiber, you know Gary. He's spent his career advancing broadband access and innovation from Capitol Hill to boardrooms to rural main streets. And under his leadership, the FBA has become the premier voice for fiber in North America, representing more than 600 companies across the ecosystem, including network operators, service providers, equipment manufacturers, and engineering firms. Gary's led FBA's work to secure major broadband innovation, shape smart infrastructure policies, and accelerate the development of future-proofing fiber networks across the U.S. He's a passionate advocate for digital equality and a firm believer that fiber is the foundation for economic growth, education, sustainability, and innovation in every community. Today, Gary's going to share with us some high-level views on what's happening across the broadband landscape, from BEAD funding to federal infrastructure strategies, and why it's the most important time for fiber providers to lead. Please join me in welcoming someone who's not only driving the conversation, but helping build the future, Gary Bolton.
Well, Steph, thanks so much. Appreciate the warm words. And I was enjoying your opening. You have all the 3 and 4 letter acronyms down for industry. So amazing how quickly you come up to speed. So, but yeah, what I'm going to talk about is just what's going on with fiber across North America. And, just if you think about, we like to say at FBA that when fiber leads, the future follows. And this is really critical as we build out the critical fiber infrastructure across the nation, because fiber is going to usher in a new age of innovation that we can't even begin to think about or even imagine today. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, the front page of the Wall Street Journal, it highlighted that scientists were able to send a quantum communications across traditional computers and traditional fiber network for 158 miles without using cryogenic cooling. So why is this a big deal? Well, when you think about quantum computing, it's really going to break the encryption on our communications today. And that's why you see nation states that are working to get quantum computing so they can steal all our data and be able to hack the internet. And so we're going to really move into the quantum age very quickly, where we have to have quantum encryption. And to be able to, if you think about quantum repeaters, they have to be super cooled, or they had to in the past, to be able to slow down the quantum bits, the qubits, so that they can be entangled to be able to have quantum encryption. And so the fact that now we're able to do that without supercooling over just traditional networks. And so, in short, if you don't have a fiber network, you're not going to be able to have quantum communications. And then, we all know what AI is transforming the world. And when we think about, AI data centers require mass amounts of fiber, water, and energy, but also AI is critical to network performance and the in-home experience. And then as we move into being able to have a greater at-home experience, the AI agents and so forth are going to be critical to the AI fiber home. So fiber is critical to AI innovation. And so when we think about, there's 140 million homes, so it's about 130 million primary residents and another 10 million secondary homes, so 140 million homes across U.S. that we need to connect with fiber. And so last year we had record deployment. We went from about 9.1 million homes passed for 2023 to 10.3 million homes passed. And we'll see that continue to trend up. We think we're going to cap out about 12 million homes per year based on the availability of labor and some other constraints. But we are seeing the largest investment cycle in fiber throughout history. And so when you think about where we are, we have now 76.5 million homes, unique homes that are connected. There's about 88 million total homes passed. So some homes have more than one passing of fiber. So we are, if you think about 140 million homes, we are about 56.5% of those homes passed. And our goal is to be able to get to 90% of homes passed by the end of the decade. And it's not just about getting homes passed, but we want to make sure that people get connected. And so our target is to get about 50% of those homes connected by the end of the decade so they can start to take advantage of world-class education, healthcare, and jobs and economic development, all the things that fiber brings. And the other thing that's really interesting is we're seeing a lot of diverse participation in deployment of fiber. There's about 1,100 fiber ISPs across the nation. And so what we're going to see is that, back in the beginning, it was kind of a Verizon show with Fios, and then what we saw with the DirecTV merger with AT&T, AT&T really jumped into the fiber to the home game. And now last year we saw that those tier one operators are, 64%, but we're seeing other participants from the regional operators such as Frontier and others. And then, we're starting to see like a Google Fibers and Tings and a lot of more competitive carriers. And then the cable industry, almost 10% of the fiber to the home deployed last year was from cable. And, when you think about the big three cable operators, anywhere that they have greenfield, they're going to put fiber to the home, and anywhere there's competition. And then at the, kind of my favorite segment is our fastest growing segment is rural electric co-ops. There's about 950 rural electric co-ops across the nation. 250 are offering broadband, and we're seeing that as, there's transitions from as GMs are retiring that, more and more rural electric co-ops are going to be providing fiber to those communities. So again, we're seeing quite a lot of diversity in the type of operators, whether it's municipal or incumbents or challengers and so forth. And so over the next 5 years, we'll see about 50% increase in the overall fiber to the home deployment versus what's been deployed throughout history. But what's even more interesting is as we get more and more rural and put more middle mile and longer routes, that we're going to double the amount of fiber route miles that is being deployed. And so, one of the big things that to address the unserved and underserved is the, broadband infrastructure bill that was signed in 2001 or 2021. So we've been waiting 4 years for this money to be rolling. It's about $42.45 billion administered by the NTIA. If you look at the 25% match, we're talking about $61 billion. And that is, we had anticipated that would hit the shovels hit the ground beginning of this year. We had 3 states that had their final proposals approved, ready to go. Now there's about half a dozen states that are ready to go, and we're just waiting on the new leadership at NTIA to give the go-ahead. And so what we've seen on those, the first 4 final proposals is that Louisiana came in with almost 96% of their proposal being fiber, and then they had 2% was fixed wireless, and then the last 2% they didn't have any bids, so they were going to punt those to low Earth orbit satellites. We saw Delaware come in with 100% fiber. We see West Virginia that's anxious to put in their proposal. They're able to get, and this is really difficult with the terrain and everything in West Virginia, be able to deliver 100% under budget. And then Nevada, we had, this chart here is trying to show that on the East Coast, they have a lot of money and they could be able to get 100% fiber. When you get out to big square states and out the West, their budgets weren't as robust. And so we had handicapped Nevada around 74% fiber, and they were actually able to outperform, getting to 80% fiber. So again, left to its natural course, we're going to see a lot more fiber being able to connect the hardest to reach. These are the 5.5 million homes that would not be addressed otherwise without some government subsidies. So now that we had an administration change on January 20th, we have a new Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, and then we are still working through the confirmation. We've Ariel Roth has come from Senator Cruz's staff. She was on Energy and Commerce, she's on the Senate Commerce Committee and staff, and so she will be becoming the new chief of NTIA, and we just need the Senate vote to get that confirmed. We're thinking that's going to be a month or two out. So meanwhile, Adam Cassidy is the acting NTI director. Adam comes from the FCC, great guy. And anyway, we're trying to get things moving. So right now, things are a bit stalled. And, the former B director, a guy named Evan Feynman, he had recently resigned. And, he had kind of sent out a farewell letter saying that the program's going to have some changes where they're going to remove a lot of the DEI requirements, so get rid of Davis-Bacon and a lot of the things that climate resiliency that were slowing down permitting, some of the rate regulations on middle class affordability. So these are all things we anticipated with the new administration. But he also warned that the new administration is going to want to push LEO satellites. And so they're looking to maybe come up with some new, each state had already come up with a extremely high cost per location. So, the way that the BEAD program had rolled out is a fiber preference. And if you have this extremely high cost per location, you could consider using fixed wireless. And then if that didn't work, there was an alternative technology. So again, what Mr. Feynman had telegraphed is there's going to be a harder push for LEO from the administration. Again, we saw that in West Virginia, they are ready to submit their final proposal that has 100% fiber with qualified providers. They're ready to make all those awards. But the governor of West Virginia basically put a hold on that at March 28th after he talked to the Secretary of Commerce and basically saying we're going to put a 90-day hold and wait to see what the administration wants to do. What we've seen from the voters poll in West Virginia is that 83% believe it's really important that all West Virginians have access to high-speed internet. So again, they're not very excited about this pause. They also believe 83% believe the state should invest in fiber over LEO. They already have LEO available, so they really want their this federal funds to finance fiber. And so again, what we've seen is that West Virginia was the first state to have a 90-day extension. That NTI has granted that extension across all 56 states and territories. Just basically, no one knows what the new rules are. And NTI, again, as they're waiting for Ariel Roth to come in and trying to come up with what adjustments the new administration wants to make to the program. So we anticipate that those new rules will be coming down in the next few weeks. And once everybody, all the states know, then they'll be able to implement those policy changes. And that's why they granted a 90-day extension. So, when we look at LEO satellites, again, as you guys might have noticed, there's someone in the White House that's very pro-LEO. And, the way satellites work, the way you determine capacity is that you have basically the capacity is three things that determine capacity. First is the capacity of each satellite. The second is how many satellites are in the sky, so the size of the constellation. And third, and the most important part, is the spectrum, because you're sending up radio links up to space, and then these radio links are coming down in these spot beams, and these spot beams serve about 114 square miles. And so we had our researchers take the latest and greatest. We modeled Starlink. And what we found is that we're at a point now where the only thing that's going to matter is spectrum. So you can't put any more. Starlink has 7,000 satellites in the sky. So putting more satellites isn't going to help because they are spectrum constrained. So if we look at today, they're able to serve 2 million homes with satellites to be able to meet the statute of 100 meg by 20. That kind of comes down to 1 living unit per square mile, because when you get these spot beams, you can't serve multiple homes in the spot beam unless they're low density. And then in the fullness of time, there's a number of things that Starlink wants to do, like increase the power. They want to increase the spectrum. And so we've assumed that FCC Chair Brendan Carr will give Starlink all the capacity, all the spectrum they've asked for. And that gets them to about 3 living units per square mile. So 3 homes per square mile. So again, very, very low density. This is great if you're off the grid or if you're on a boat or RV, but this isn't really the solution to be able to provide critical infrastructure. And then, of course, I think everybody knows that fiber has the best performance when you look at any technology, and satellite has the worst. The worst from speed, the worst from latency, the worst from jitter, and the worst from network reliability, as well as it's the most expensive. We see a lot of fiber. I get fiber to my house, 2 gigabits for symmetric for $60 a month. Google Fiber has been offering gigabit for $70 a month. Starlink's about $120 a month. So you're paying 50% more, plus, up front, you're paying about $500. There are some new offers by Starlink to not make you pay for this, the dish, give you the free dish. And then there's also, they've offered a deprioritize $80. If you're working from home, if you're trying to do your telehealth and so forth, you can't really have deprioritized service. You need to be able to have reliable connection so that you can be able to do online education and telehealth and all those things. So again, if you're just looking to do a few emails, it's great, but it's not going to be that economic driver for that community. The good news is that private investment has really stepped up. We saw John Stankey, CEO of AT&T, right after election, do Investor Day and commit to hitting 50 million homes with fiber by the end of 2029. They're doing a fantastic job. And what's really driving for them is that fiber is accelerating in their business case by 2 years. Fiber allows them to have faster penetration. It significantly increases the average revenue per user. It reduces churn. And it also, Wall Street likes to say the first operator to a subscriber with fiber wins the broadband business. But they also say the first operator to the subscriber with fiber wins the mobile wireless business. So if you're a WISP, a wireless operator, the quickest to being able to win that wireless business is to deliver fiber. But we also see a number of other operators, such as Nick Jeffries here. It's Frontier. They did 320 million fiber ads this past quarter. They're at 8.1 million homes passed. They're going to hit 10 million homes passed with fiber by the end of the year. So they're seeing significant customer growth. And when you couple that with Verizon, that's going to be somewhere in that 35 to 40 million homes passed. So again, you got 50 million from AT&T, 40 million from Verizon Frontier. Sue Shen, I absolutely love her. She is the president and CEO of Hawaiian Telecom. They were going to get $147 million of BEAD funds, $147 million, which when you look at the billions that other states are giving, doesn't seem like much money. So what they did is they invested private capital with their local state funding to deliver $1.7 billion investment and then they're going to be able to get fiber to every member in Hawaii. Everyone in Hawaii will have fiber by the end of next year, not 2029 and not 2030, but by the end of next year. And then again, we see other, kind of the publicly released fiber targets. T-Mobile will be around 15 million homes passed. Ziply will get to 3 million. Consolidated is going to do 70% of its footprint by this year. That's about 2 million homes. TDS is going to get another 1.3 million homes with fiber. These are just a few. So again, the private investment, it's very accretive. Wall Street loves it on validate, market cap. It reduces your OpEx. It's, just great business at accelerating your business. And the market is huge. So while, we've been able to get 88 million homes, primary and second passings, we still have about 150 million homes left to pass. If you think about it, there's another 71 million of primary passings, plus another 77 millions of redundant passings. So that's going to get us to about 48.6 million. So the total addressable market for fiber is giant. And that's why we see so much private equity, so much investment to be able to get fiber to every American. And not only is it being able to get everybody with great internet experience and be able to jobs and economic development, but it's also being good stewards of the environment. So our sustainability working group compared this the carbon footprint of fiber, a passive optical network, to that of a cable network, a hybrid fiber coax network. And not only is the manufacturing reduce it in installation, but the annual operating costs, when you think about all the active components in a cable network, it's able to reduce the carbon footprint by 93%. That is huge. And also, when you think about utilities, everything keeps the prices keep going up, and up. But with broadband, the prices keep going down, down, down on a cost per megabit basis. And so as we're today deploying 10 gig networks, we're already starting to see 25 gig symmetric networks being deployed. We'll be soon deploying 50 gig and then get into terabits. And so again, for the foreseeable future, the cost per megabit is going to continue to go down, 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 while the other utilities go up. And then from a consumer perspective, fiber gains market share. When a consumer has a choice, fiber gets 15 points of market share. Where they get it from largely is cable. It used to be wireless, but we have seen a little bump with fixed wireless. And fixed wireless is great because you get fiber all the way out to line of sight. So you're building the critical infrastructure that's going to support things like smart grids, going to support quantum networking, it's going to support public safety, it's going to support cell towers. So you can, and then you can build out, from that line of sight to the home over time, getting fiber all the way to the home. So, we really have this amazing opportunity in front of us. Fiber is going to elevate the quality of life for generations to come. So I'm excited. My team's excited. And, hopefully you guys will all be joining us down in Nashville, June 1st through 4th for our big Fiber Connect 2025 conference. As I like to say, 6,000 of my closest friends. But we're in this amazing time in history, and we have a real opportunity to be able to get fiber connected to every American by the end of the decade. Because when fiber leads, the future follows. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gary. What an incredible way to start the day. You've given us a powerful reminder that while we're here to talk about integrations, automations, and platforms, none of it happens in a vacuum. And that policy shapes access. So funding shapes opportunity. And then together, these forces create the environment where ISPs can grow, serve, and innovate. Let's open it up to some live Q&A. We had a few questions come in from our registrants before the event, so we're going to start with those. Please go ahead and add any additional comments and questions you have for Gary into the chat panel under comments. And if we have some time, we'll get to those as well. So Gary, here's our first question. How confident are you that states will continue to prioritize fiber in BEAD allocation?
Yeah, so I've been meeting with every state broadband office, there's 56 of those, and just talking to them about what is it they're going to do, because there is, the administration is pushing down, what they call technology neutral, which is really trying to make space for LEO satellites. And every state understands the benefit of being able, the economic benefit of being able to deploy fiber. And so, when the state has an opportunity to be able to get fiber to every member of their community, they're going to do that. And where they struggle is, I mentioned in that one chart shows that some of the states didn't have the budget to get fiber everywhere. Some states have really challenging topology. On my Fiber for Breakfast next week, we'll be talking with Alaska. And again, Alaska, a lot of mountains, there's ice, there's a lot of islands and water. And so again, very, very difficult, very high cost per location. And so they have to have a pretty broad toolbox. But every single state broadband office I talked to has basically said, we're going to get fiber to every person we possibly can with the budget we have. the other thing is one of the state's broadband directors that, when they had a meeting with Starlink, for example, and they said, was the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act, so big J there. And how many, low Earth orbit satellite base stations will be put in my state? And they said 0. And they said, so you're not going to create a single job in my state? And they're like, no. So why would we give money to a company that's not going to be creating any jobs? And so, I mean, the main driver would be is you just want to make sure that no one's left behind. I start off with talking about quantum and AI. These innovations are, I mean, we can't even imagine what's going to be happening. And you can't look to the past to predict the future, really, that we're on this kind of quantum shift in innovation. And so you don't want to really leave anybody behind.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that feeds right into the next question that we had come in from folks, which is, what are the most effective ways ISPs can influence state broadband offices right now?
Well, I would, if you aren't meeting with your state broadband director, I would definitely get on their radar and meet with them. And you want to make sure, one, they know who you are, and two, to be able to encourage them to get their final proposals in and, get things moving, because, we are, it's summer here, right? And so we'll soon quickly be in, out of the build season, especially in those northern states. So we need to get things moving very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you mentioned, AI depends on fiber. Are you seeing any alignment between federal AI strategy and broadband funding or planning?
Yeah. So, there's a big AI hearing in DC this week. And, the administration, you probably saw that from, right at the beginning after the new administration came into office, that a big investment into AI. And again, that is where fiber really aligns with the new administration. Is fiber is a huge AI enabler. And so I think, just even Steph, with your company, how AI is such a critical component, especially going forward. And AI is really going to touch every part of our lives. It's only a few short years ago that Chat GPT kind of became, on everybody's radar, and it's a little clunky and doesn't quite work that great yet. But pretty soon everything we'll do will be AI influenced and AI enabled, and then it's going to start working great and be great. And you just don't want to miss out on the AI future.
Yeah, no, I get you. Last question that I have right here is, how should we as an industry reframe the case for fiber in a policy environment pushing the technology neutral stance?
Well, it's challenging, right? Because there's all these policy terms. It's like, it used to would be, terms like technology neutral was basically a way to say, hey, let less lower performance technologies be able to participate in these programs. And what you want to be able to do is be able to put in critical infrastructure that's going to last for generations. And we moved off this copper infrastructure that served our nation well for a century, and now for the next century, fiber is going to be the key enabler. And it's the key enabler for wireless. It's the key enabler for AI. It's the key enabler for economic development and growth. And anytime that we've seen people use subsidies for some other technology, we end up subsidizing those areas over and over again. We saw that with all the Connect America funds from the FCC. There was a race to the bottom on speeds. They started out with 4 megabits down, 1 megabit up. So DSL went in, and they changed it to 10.1, and again some more DSL went in, and they changed it to 25.3. And now, so now that we've subsidized those four times, we're going in with fiber. And so again, fiber will end up winning the day. Do you really want to spend money, because we're not going to get another bite at this apple. We can't get this wrong.
Right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for joining us today and for your leadership and setting such a meaningful tone for today. This has been amazing.
Steph, thanks for everything. And, I wish you guys the best, and I look forward to seeing everybody in Nashville in a couple weeks.